The shadow fell across all of Palworld. The slaves paid no attention to it. They toiled away, working hard at their tasks. "What is it, do you think?" "A new pal, I'm sure," the slaver said, smirking. "And we all know what we do to pals." He fingers the pal sphere on his belt lovingly. The shadowy figure continued to float in place, always directly in front of the sun. It seemed to be watching them. "I could put a boulet in it," one of the men bragged, raising his rifle up high. "Do it." "It's becoming an eyesore." The man had to dim his vision with sunglasses to take aim towards the sun. He lowered the rifle, adjusted it, and aimed directly at the creature. "Right in my sights." He breathed and pulled the trigger. The bullet shot out of the gun, arched upward, and slammed into the man's head. He staggered backward, blood gushing out of his head. His friends were laughing at him. "That was the worst shot I've ever seen." One of them crowed as the man fell to the ground and began to writhe about in his death throes. What a bitch made way to go out. The shadow remained unmoving, but it was forgotten as the group began to point and laugh at their fallen friend. They were already making plans to run trains on his girlfriend before he stopped twitching. "We should rape him in the ass too," someone commented, "or have a Paul do it." None of them gave even a passing thought to the creature floating above them. These were simple-minded creatures. They could only think about things that were right in front of them. The creature continued hovering above them, looking down at them, watching them. The body of the mole was cut up and served among the group. The Pauls, who were enslaved, were forced to cook the man, but were not allowed to eat him. Several of the cooks during the process were turned on and cooked themselves. "Plenty of other pals out there," the slaver sneered as one of the loyal slaves was set on a plate in front of him. The shadow from above had seen enough. It began to glow with a brilliant light, casting the darkened campground into light. The men yelped and went for their weapons. The Pauls took fighting positions. "It's a raid," the man shouted. "How many are there?" "It is only I." The creature spoke, but it did not speak with words. Its thoughts seemed to project themselves into each and every one of their minds. The Pauls and their masters froze, their eyes wide with fear. None of them had encountered a creature like this before. "What are you doing?" "Shoot it." They went for their weapons. Dozens of guns, held by pals and masters alike, shot upward and fired towards the enemy. Hundreds of bullets shot towards the monster, and without losing any momentum swerved to the side. They cycled the creature as if they were the winds of a tornado, spinning and spinning around endlessly. The mass of bullets became so thick that it became difficult to see their quarry. "Stop," one of the men called. "Can't you see it's not working?" They stopped firing. The instant they did so, the bullets fell to the ground in a clatter. The creature had vanished. It ran. One of the men said disparagingly as he stepped up to where it had last been seen. "What a kawa-ack." The creature had appeared behind him. It had raised one hand and clutched its 3 fingers together. The barrel of the rifle bent, curling itself around the man's neck and choking him. The men opened fire. This time they clearly saw the creature disappear into thin air, but their companion was not so lucky. The sheer amount of bullets that hit him eviscerated him completely. His remains lay on the ground, lying completely still. "You show as little mercy to your allies as you do to your enemies," the creature said quietly. It was impossible to locate where it was hiding because it only spoke through telepathy. It made no sound. The men nervously swung their weapons around, trying to isolate the location of the creature. "This world is cruel." Another man let out a cry. He was being lifted into the air. He struggled and fought and kicked, but was unable to free himself from the grip of whatever it was that was holding him. But it does not need to be. The man screamed as he was contorted into a ball. His bones snapped and broke as his entire body twisted. "You are cruel for cruelty's sake." You do not fight for sport or pleasure or for your friends. You simply seek chaos for the sake of chaos. The man cried out in pain as he was thrown to the side. His body splattered against the nearby cliff and exploded into blood. This world is evil to the core. The creature said, I, Mewtwo, will destroy you. Paws leapt forward, baring their teeth, but all of them were thrown aside. I thought you were Pokemon once. Mewtwo said, but you have allowed your relationship with humans to become warped and twisted. They call you slaves, but you are even less than that. The paw bared its teeth at him and grimaced. It tried in vain to fight, but it could not move. Mewtwo raised its hand and threw it. It let out a yelp as it slammed into a master, who fell over. Bastard thing, he snarled. The instant he regained his balance, he tried to kick it. As he brought his leg back, through, it began to writhe and twist. The man let out a yelp of pain as his leg splintered into pieces. He lost his balance and fell over, cursing incessantly. The paw sat blankly. It looked almost pitiable, but Mewtwo did not have time to dwell on its state of mind. Man after man threw himself at it, thrusting and kicking mercilessly. It had to sway back and forth, almost lazily, to stop the incoming physical attacks. More than one shadow ball or psychic attack hit a man straight in the face, sending him flying. These were not capable fighters, Mewtwo realized. They were completely reliant on pals to do the work for them. This world is a nest of evil, Mewtwo said. Hey, the man before him breathed. One that even a creature such as you could never overcome. His face twisted into a wry smile. This world will continue to exist whether you like it or not. He sneered. His head exploded with a psychic blast, and he lay limp on the ground. Mewtwo stood among the carnage and bloodbath. He stared up at the sky. What kind of creature could have designed a world such as this? He wondered. Upon meditation, he found his answer. The CEO of Pocket Pair smirked to himself as he played with the hem of his suit. He had the best lawyers that money could buy. The vast majority of Palworld's audience was overseas. There was nothing that Nintendo could do to touch that money. Even if they were able to prove that the design of the game was stolen here today, the money would be safe. He had to stop himself from smiling as the judge walked to the bench. An older man in his 80s, he likely had no idea what a video game even was. Nintendo would have a hard time convincing such a man that video game patents were not genericized. All was going according to plan. All rise. The CEO stood, along with the rest of the courtroom. In today's proceedings, we will be examining the patent claim between Nintendo and Pocket Pair Entertainment. The judge looked to at Nintendo, and he looked at the Pocket Pair CEO. He raised the gavel. I have seen enough, he said. Palworld will pay $100 million to Nintendo in damages and cease all operations. He brought down the gavel. No, this isn't possible, he cried. He had just spent a bunch of money on paid shills to inform message boards and Twitter that such a thing was not possible. His company didn't have the resources to pay such a sum. Ha ha ha. He shuddered. Invisible hand clutched his shoulder. Did you really think you would get away with this? Mewtwo whispered. Its voice trickled into his mind like a stream, overwhelming his senses. This was a patent suit, not copyright, the man said stupidly. Software is patented, Mewtwo said patiently, as if he were talking to a retarded child. And your company plagiarized Nintendo's software. The CEO shook his head. No, this isn't true. That's impossible. He stood up and charged the judge's bench. The bailiff had to leap forward and restrain him. Nintendo can't own Pokemon, he said. It should be free for anyone to use. The bailiff wrestled him to the ground. I don't have any real talent. The man cried. I don't have any real skill at making games. All I can do is just copy what other people have done and claim it as my own work. Without Palworld, I am nothing." Mewtwo's voice hit his ear. "You are wrong. It is because of Palworld that your life has amounted to nothing." The man threw his head up into the air. "Sony," he begged. "Xbox. Valve, please. You have to save me. If you don't, Nintendo will destroy you too." But no one came.